I remember the first time we met in your office, and I think it was at the tail end of your service, and I was talking a little bit about what we're up to at Circle, and USDC was very early at that point. But I think you're now, I think, focused on very significant, very strategic issues in this area, and I'd love to hear as well sort of what, when did you have your aha moment about digital dollars and about digital currency with respect to the dollar, and really we'll talk about the project as well, but just sort of what was that moment for you?
Well, it actually wasn't the Bitcoin futures moment. It really was it was sort of like a broad observation that built over my 5 years in government service. And it was an observation that, Jeremy, in the United States and in the West, you look around us and you see our obsolete infrastructure of bridges and tunnels and airports and mass transportation systems that were state of the art in the last century are increasingly obsolete in the 21st century. Sadly, the same is true, and I've talked about this in a number of areas, same is true about a lot of our financial market infrastructure, systems for payment and settlement, foreign exchange, but also the financial market regulatory infrastructure as well. I mean, the statutes for the CFTC and the SEC were laid out in the 1930s.
Right.
We're coming on a 100-year anniversary of structures that were durable, clearly, but they were built for an analog human-to-human world, not for a digital, algo-driven and increasingly tokenized and decentralized world.
Yeah.
And my next observation, and we saw it at the CFTC, is this coming wave of the internet, this wave of the internet of value. The first wave of the internet of information took place in a regulatory light zone, because we've long, based on our First Amendment and general principles of jurisprudence in the West, considered to be speech to be something that is free and not subject to government oversight. But when it comes to things of value, governments have long presumed to have authority and jurisdiction. We have not just one, but two market regulators. We have 3 or 4 banking regulators, and that's just at the national level before we even get to the state level. Governments in our Western system have long presumed to arbitrate in matters of things of value. So the lessons that we learned in the first wave of the internet about don't ask permission, ask forgiveness, or you're not trying hard enough, you're not breaking things, is going to have to be tempered a bit in this new wave of the internet when that's going to run smack into government entities built up to moderate and modulate things of value. And that brings me to my third observation, which is that this wave of the internet is going to run crashing headlong into this obsolete regulatory structure.
It is right now.
It is right now. And so what do? We either do nothing, in which case innovation and development is going to take place elsewhere and it's going to be stymied in the United States, or like a mighty wind, instead of trying to allowing ourselves to be blown over by it, let's hitch a sail to it and ride it. And I think there's a huge opportunity to ride this wave, to both modernize our infrastructure, which needs to be modernized, but also to move forward into a new era where I think, once again, our core principles, freedom of speech, free enterprise, degrees of privacy can be integrated into this new technology for the betterment of ourselves and I think for the rest of the world. And that's a choice I think we fundamentally have to make now.
Yeah, no, we're right on the precipice of that. I really, your context is, I have a lot of shared beliefs there, of course, and I was very involved in the first waves of the internet, and there's that period of time in the the mid 90s when really you had these large established industries and regulators that oversaw the airwaves, that oversaw who could spread their voice to an audience of people in the world. And this was all over the world, not just in the US. It was sort of, and you had, monopolies, state-controlled monopolies. You had private sector, kind of controlled infrastructure. And, there was, I think, bold policy actions that were taken in 1996, 1997, very bold policy actions that sort of said, we're gonna create structures for this to grow and flourish. And I think very few people would look back on that and say that was a bad idea. There's stuff that we've seen, uncontrolled, unfettered, have created new centralization problems, actually, which we're now responding to, centralized platforms, things like that. But that kind of visceral idea of the internet slamming up against the government-run and administered monetary system, or this hybrid, is very real, and there's tremendous need to walk our way through that and make sure we're on the right side of what this enables for people everywhere.